All right, you guys asked for more information on narcissists, so here goes. Leslie Wells, connection coach here. I help people work on their relationships and work on their relationship with their self by looking at their attachment style. So some of your questions were centered around how do I determine if something is like an attachment wound or coming from somebody's attachment style, or if they are truly a narcissist. So we'll get into that as well. First of all, if you watch my last video on narcissism, I talked about it's really, the term is overused a lot. Just because somebody is a toxic or a crappy person does not make them a narcissist. There's only like 6.2% of people who are actually diagnosed. That being said, it's an overused term, but it's also underdiagnosed because narcissists are master manipulators. And so a lot of times they can manipulate a therapist in an hour-long session. Usually the people closest to them that are usually in a romantic relationship or close friends are the people that will be able to identify them because they've been around them long enough that they see what's going on, whereas they put on a very good front to other people. Let me also clarify that I do not diagnose NPD. I have counseled people that are in relationships with narcissists, and I have worked with narcissists, but I am not able to clinically diagnose that. And that is one of the things that separates attachment style actually from somebody who has NPD. It is a true personality disorder. Your attachment style, once you recognize it, once you see the behaviors that are showing up as a result of your attachment wounds, you can work on those things and they can be changed. You cannot just change narcissistic personality disorder. It is very much embedded into your personality. And it actually has to meet the diagnosis, the different criteria that are in the DSM. So it actually is a clinical diagnosis. You cannot just say because somebody's a crappy person that they are truly a narcissist. And if you heard my last video, it is something that goes on a spectrum. So you can have some people who just have like smaller narcissistic traits, or they're very low on the spectrum, to people that are just complete obvious narcissists and that are very exploitative, no empathy for other people, and are very, very harmful to other people through the different tactics that they use. All of them somewhat struggle with, a sense of entitlement, inflated ego, thinking they're superior to others, having a lack of empathy for others, exploiting people for their own personal gain and needs. Those are things that go with all narcissists, but again, it can be anywhere on that spectrum. So there's two types of narcissists. Both are clinically diagnosed the same, and they have to have the same criteria that's in the DSM. You have to have maybe 5 out of 8. There's a certain number that you have to have in order to be clinically diagnosed. And so there's covert and there's overt. The overt is probably what most people think about when they think of a narcissist. These are the ones that are in your face. It's very obvious that they manipulate others, exploit other people. They have a very big sense of grandiosity, inflated ego. They really, people know that they want to be admired and feel that they're superior to other people. They don't really do a good job of hiding it. It's very in your face. This is also called the extroverted narcissist. These are the types that are obviously controlling and manipulative, and they also can get angry, and they don't necessarily hide that anger if you test them or question them. They'll get angry and go into a rage a lot faster than the covert one will. So an example is the person who always has a VIP pass everywhere they go, and let's say that they go into a bar or a club or somewhere that they go all of the time, and they always have the VIP status. They have a big group of people around them. Everyone knows that they're the VIP, that they get special treatment. They sit down, they've got all the bottles of champagne. People are waiting on them. They expect to be waited on. They expect to be treated differently. And all of their friends sort of know them for that. And initially their friends may be like, oh, this guy's a great time. Or this girl's a great time. She's always including other people and going big, and she's so important, she's able to do all of these things. But eventually they start to see that it really is like them feeding their own ego, and that they're not actually giving a lot back to the friendship. It's more about keeping themselves up here and their friends down here. If they were actually around people that are maybe a higher status to them, once they sort of use that to climb the ladder and get themselves higher, after that they won't really have so much use for those people, and you'll notice that they kind of like to be the ones at the top and everybody else under them. But let's say that they've got one of those times and they're going into their VIP lounge, and maybe for some whatever reason they can't get in that time, or they're not allowed a VIP pass. They're going to be upset and get angry because they're used to special treatment, and if they don't get it, they're going to get upset. That is an example of an overt narcissist. The covert narcissist is a lot harder to diagnose because they do the same things, but they do it in a very subtle way. They come across as being humble, but they're very passive aggressive. They still exploit people, but they don't do it in the same way. They still control people, but not in the same way. So whereas the overt is very controlling, the covert does it in more just subtle ways. They'll use tactics like gaslight, blame, shift. They'll withdraw, maybe stop communicating whenever you have somehow hurt their ego or questioned them or challenged them. They're really good at playing the victim. And so they might do something like if they feel ignored or disrespected or humiliated, or maybe you brought them a problem and they took it as a criticism to their ego, they might do something like pull away and punish you, stop answering your phone calls, stop hanging out, just become like aloof. And maybe you really haven't done anything. Or let's say, for instance, that maybe you're just really busy at work, so you haven't had time to give them a lot of attention. And they constantly need that praise and affirmation and need to be felt like they're special. And so if you're super busy, maybe you're not doing that. So they'll just sort of pull away and silently, passive aggressively punish you, or maybe start saying things that are critical to hurt you. And then if you like call them out on it, they're like, oh, no, that was just a joke. You can't take a joke. You're so sensitive, or you're always getting upset. But it's far more subtle. They're still controlling you. They're still manipulative. They're still exploiting you for their own purposes. And they still need you to inflate that ego and make them feel superior. But it's going to be much more, it's going to be in a much more subtle way. And you can also they're also called vulnerable narcissists. So the coverts are also called vulnerable narcissists. So how does that apply to attachment? So attachment, usually someone's attachment style, if it's an insecure attachment style, will typically show up in their romantic relationships. Whereas for a narcissist, everyone can sort of see that behavior. And it will affect their different relationships. So for a narcissist, their friends will eventually see it, especially obviously if they're an overt. Their friends, it can come in their workplace because they don't like authority. They want to be superior. So having someone above them telling them what to do and trying to control them and dominate them, they can start to have issues in the workplace. If they, even a child's teacher, they can have problems with like school and the teachers. Like if they want to make sure that their student or their child is treated special, they might pull strings, manipulate, do things to sort of get their kids more favor because that's what they do. But it will bleed over into other relationships. And so as far as the attachment styles, for the insecure attachment styles, the anxious preoccupied is typically not going to look like a narcissist. You're not going to see behaviors that do that, but you will with the fearful avoidant and you will with the dismissive avoidant. So some of the things that the dismissive avoidant does is obviously shut down, withdraw, pull away. And while narcissists will do that to punish and control you and manipulate you, the DA is not doing that for the same reason. The DA is going to do that because their nervous system truly is in a sense of overwhelm. And so they don't have the capacity to stay present at that time. Their shutdown is, that is a complete flight or freeze response. It's not them using it as a tactic to control you, manipulate you, and gain power. The fearful avoidant can be mean at times. They carry this betrayal wound, these trust issues, and they always sort of are waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so when they're hurt in a fight or they feel like there's any kind of betrayal, even a small betrayal, a lot of times they'll go immediately into like a fight response. And they can come across as mean and say hurtful, unkind things. But they're not doing it for that dominance, that power, that control. They really want to connect with you, and they really desperately want to be seen, heard, and understood. So if they feel like you're not seeing them or hearing them, they can get angry. Or if you have really hurt them, they feel like if I hurt that person back and they can feel my hurt and experience that same pain, they won't hurt me in that way again. So it's their subconscious way of leveling the playing field, so to speak. So it's not to be hurtful. Typically, the fearful avoidant will come back, apologize. They want to reconnect, whereas a narcissist is never going to do that. They're never going to admit they're wrong. They're never going to apologize. Their goal is not to reconnect. It's to dominate. It's not to repair. So you'll see that big difference between the fearful avoidant and the narcissist. The other thing with the fearful avoidant is usually most of their, sometimes they will do things to manipulate and control, especially the people, their romantic partners or situations around them. But that is coming from a place of fear. So they're so afraid that they're going to be hurt or betrayed in the relationship. They're always looking for ways that a partner is going to betray them or not be able to show up well for them. So sometimes they will sort of control things just as a way to keep things safe for themselves. And these are things that once they're aware of, they work on and they're willing to change. Whereas the narcissist, again, is going to do it for power, control, dominance to exploit you. So I hope that helps dig a little farther and show you the different types of narcissists and help distinguish the behaviors of someone with an insecure attachment style and attachment wounds versus someone that has NPD. If you have any more questions, put them in the comments.